Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the interview. The brother Ryan McGinnis. How you doing, my man?
Walaikum assalam. Brother, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Feeling good. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for joining me here in this interview and sharing a little bit of your story and your time and your energy. And it's massively appreciated. And I can't wait to get into it.
Pleasure's all mine, my brother.
All right. So, right off the top, I would love to ask you what led you to Islam?
He wastes no time. All right. Well, short answer, and then we'll get into it a little bit more, is, like yourself, I consider myself a seeker and, just seeker of truth, seeker of promise, seeker of good people, seeker of love. But um, I guess I would say I'd chase every high out there imaginable, and I'd chase every type of avenue to spiritualism. Not to say I'm an expert or, I have a background in all of them, but something eventually led me to Islam, and the rest is history. And I've sought so many highs in so many ways, and the only way I found peace was through Islam. And I'd be the last person to ever think that I would be Muslim. And here we are. And, the rest is history. No regrets whatsoever.
Fantastic. So maybe we'll take a step back and set things up a little bit. So how did you perceive the religion of Islam before you had any, if someone took a time machine, I'm sure they would have found you at a point in your life where and tell me if I'm wrong, where you would have said, "Me become Muslim?" Like, no way. Never, that's not me. You got me confused with somebody else. So if that is true, and if we could go back to that time, how did you see the religion? Like, how did you see it long before you ever thought that it would be something you would take part in?
I gotta be honest, like it it was neutral. It was pretty neutral. Like, I did have the Western bias through, just exposure, indoctrination. And when I say exposure, I mean like media exposure or just poor represented exposure. And I'm human. We're all human. You're susceptible to types of things, but I really, despise allowing exterior things to kind of dictate my thoughts and opinions on things. But I will be honest, I had a misconstrued idea of Islam. I knew that in my heart of hearts that the media had probably had the representation of it completely, at least wrong, or if not a little negative. And I didn't quite look at like Muslims or people who follow the Islamic faith as like that evil terrorists or anything like that. But I got a I got a weird feeling of like ignorance around it. I didn't know anything about it. I knew that they prayed differently. I knew that they had a different way of life, a different standards, and some the five pillars. I was aware of the five pillars, not exactly like what they were, but I knew that they had certain, responsibilities and disciplines that they adhered to. However, I knew nothing of it. And so, yeah, it was kind of in the sense of I didn't think I would ever be that way, just based off of my lifestyle and the way I chose to live life. I wouldn't say it was so much recklessly. It was just really liberal and really free. And I don't like to be told what to do, and I'm not gonna, stuff like that. Yeah, it's crazy how life changes and things change. And when you develop an understanding of something, you can have this keen relationship to it now, where it's like, huh, okay, my understanding of this was completely wrong, and that's okay. And here we are, instead of penalizing ourselves or guilting ourselves for our misunderstanding or our perceived ignorance of it, it was just now we know, let's move forward. And then I got interested in it, and that's the thing about it is I'm always willing to learn. Like I'm never gonna, be arrogant to think I know anything or everything. The only thing we know is nothing at all, right? And so I think looking back at it, all the dots connected where it was like once I understood, and I think I'm still learning, and it's a lifetime of a journey of learning until we kind of understand what Islam is and what it means to us personally. But when you understand at least the foundation and the base of it, you kind of make the connections. Well, for most for people who, adopt Islam or choose that route or feel that route connects to them. For me, it was like I look back at my life and little tidbits of my life, little highlights here and there of my childhood, all the way up to current. It was just like I was always Muslim. I just didn't know it, and maybe I was like a bad Muslim because I wasn't following certain disciplines, but the whole idea and concept of being a Muslim, like and submitting your will to God, praying only to God, worshiping God and Allah only. That is something I kind of always resonated with, even as a child in like Christians in Sunday school when we were praying to Jesus. I just never felt really weird. I felt really weird about praying to actually Jesus than as to praying to God. Like I was wondering, like, why am I not praying to God? Why am I praying to His Son? Or like what, or so and so, But like, it's just I don't know. They say the dots don't connect looking forward. It'll drive yourself mad trying to do it. But looking back, all the dots connected perfectly in this beautiful fashion. And that's exactly what it was when, I adopted Islam and decided this is what's gonna happen. I'm gonna, take Shahada and we're gonna do this and we're gonna, live out and die the rest of your life as a Muslim. So, well, inshallah, Yeah,
Alhamdulillah. So
alhamdulillah.
if we could just drill down a little deeper on that, like when you to go from thinking of it in, kind of a neutral way, exposed to the culture of the media and so on that represents it as it does, when did you kind of turn the corner, or what was the process like for you to be exposed to it a little bit differently, such that you wanted to learn more about it, or that you that your ears perked up in a different way, or that you looked at it with a different type of interest? Like, do you have any memories about,
I love this question. I love
yeah,
this
like
one.
I'm curious what kind of came your way that caught your
Yeah.
eye, you know?
So I'll reformat it. Thank you, by the way. I love this question. I seldom get asked these types of things. So first off, my background is I'm born and raised in Maui, Hawaii. So I'm very isolated out there. Not to say that there aren't beautiful people there. It's a beautiful place to be and live. I'm super lucky to call it home. But there's not a lot of Muslims there. It's not a big Islamic population. On the contrary, the neighbor island, Oahu, there are, quite a bit of a Muslim population, but that island has, a huge increase in population as opposed to the other islands. So I would say the first answer is the exposure. Being when I moved outside of the state, when I moved out, off my little rock in the middle of the ocean, and you're exposed to more people, more cultures, more places in the continent. And uh, my time spent in Austin, Texas, and was really rewarding in the sense of it was like a melting pot, very much like Maui, but on a bigger scale. And that's where I met a lot of Muslims who are just genuinely normal, great people. And you wouldn't have known A from B had you didn't have that conversation. Like, oh, you're Muslim. Okay, cool, awesome. Usually it's because I was like, hey, you want to go get a drink or something? And then, something lead to another. And, so but yeah, exposure, being around other Muslims and being able to have personal relationships with them, that helped facilitate one, the I guess the dismissal of any kind of negative idea and connotation I've had about Islam or Muslims. And then also it kind of sparks an interest because you look around, and I'm not to say that, Muslims and we are Muslims are like way better than most people. We're not. We're all just human, right? But my Muslim friends hold me to a higher standard, and I it makes me hold me to a higher standard. Not in the sense where like they'll like disown me if I screw up, but like it's you effectively become a lot like the people you surround yourself with, and when you surround yourself with people who are driven, who are good, who are on their deen, like you yourself are motivated to do that yourself. You want to do that for yourself, and that's literally what it was. I was exposed and I was around more people, not only Muslims. You know, I was around Hare Krishnas. I was around every type of religious person or spiritual person, and it just helps you understand it when you're not hearing it from a third party perspective, or you're not hearing it based off of propaganda, indoctrination. It's actually like, no, I see it with my eyes. I hear it with my ears. Like, you know, and this is not what, you know, the real world really is. And so, yeah, I did have a wildly different understanding of what the concept of Islam was. And up until a few weeks ago, you know this, my brother, when I reached out to you, I, I still had a misconstrued idea of it, you know, and it's a lifetime of a journey to getting to that understanding and clarity of it. So, yeah.
Beautiful, mashallah. So, is there anything else, you know, this is so beautiful what you're describing of meeting Muslims and being touched by this kind of personality and these personality types and maybe the warmth of that. And I'm curious, like, is there anything else? Was there, you know, sitting down and reading the Quran, or was there any type of book or interview or personality in particular that came your way that was kind of like, you know, a milestone in your development? Or was it sort of
Well,
more just meeting these people and thinking, you know what? Yeah, I want to be down with this. I want to be about this.
yeah, a little bit of that. It was mainly I prayed. I was at the rock bottom point in my life, and you know, I was seldom a person who prayed. Um, and you know, it wasn't a Salah prayer. It was just a normal like Westerner type of idea of prayer. But I didn't go through the whole. I didn't know anything about prayer at that time or something. I would just, you know, talk to God, and I was at my lowest point, and you know, I prayed for not necessarily life to get easier, but for a little bit of clarity or understanding or some sort of positive change in my life because I needed it. And a girl came along who just so happened to be Muslim. And I know it sounds, you know, it's a story that's been told a million times, but no, this is different. It wasn't so much more of a romantic love thing. It was no, a woman brought me to Islam, and the the musical, I guess the music aspect of the Adhan brought me into the mosque. Let's put it that way. My background's in music. I'm a music producer, music group owner, like a record label owner, and all that. But yeah, the first time I had heard the Quran being sung, I nearly broke down and with tears of joy, and it was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. And upon like passing the mosque that was a block or two from my house, you know, a couple times back and forth, should I go in? Should I go in? Nah, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And then hearing the Adhan, it drew me in. It drew me in, and that the rest is history. You know what I mean? It's like my love and my passion is music. And now I've been exposed, and I've been I got an interest, a keen interest into this religion, this spiritualism, because music is highly integrated in it. I mean, in the sense of like it's sung, you know, most of the Quran recitation, it's sung. And like how could I don't know. I was like, how could I not at least dive a little deeper into this and learn a little bit? So long story short, I will spare the details with the girl because it's not really all that huge. Yes, she put me on the path in the sense because her family and her background was Islam, and in order to try to get to know her and her family more, I respected the culture and started to learn the culture. I started to learn the prayer techniques so that I could go to Jummah at the time. At the time, I called it Friday prayer, which essentially it is, but yeah, and I wanted to at least show that I was willing to participate in it, and I'm not just trying to show a temporary interest in some man's daughter or something like that. You know, and that ultimately led me to reading the Quran. And I don't think I've ever read the Quran actually. It's always read me completely. Like definitely I've read it like front to back, but it's always read me. That's what I'd say. I like and people say like what is the Quran and like what's the difference? Like, you know, I said just read it for yourself and just let it read you because it's so I don't know, it's falling short. I don't care who it is who's going to tell you about the Quran or describe the Quran to you. Like, you just got to read it or you're just never going to get it. Like, that's just it. Like, in my opinion. And so yeah, it was a combination of two, a serendipitous like interaction and short-term relationship with a woman who eventually led me into Islam, and then the the captivating beauty of like the Quran being recited, just that was the sealed the deal. That sealed it right there. And yeah, and just overall like the just the concept of it, like it's beautiful, man. It's just it's such a beautiful thing, and the more you learn about it, and the more it just engulfs you, it just it gets better and better and better, and you start to realize that it's timeless. Like it's timeless. Like yeah, the Quran is from the past, but it's so relevant every day. It's like every single day, and it's gonna be relevant all the way to the end, you know? So it's just yeah, it's hard to explain. I know you want words here, but I can't really put it into words. You know, it's like words fall short with this connection to Allah and to this religion and to the spiritual tradition. And so, yeah, if I do come up with some words in between this interview, we'll get it in. But yeah, it's yeah, I can't describe it. It's something beyond human comprehension. Yeah.
Mashallah. You know what? I think you've touched on something really incredible, which is this interesting almost contradiction or dichotomy where, you know, the Quran is words. It was revealed in language. This is very much something that at this point in 2024 has become a scriptural thing. And we pore over these words and we consult scholars to tell us what the words mean. And we have to have some access, even as people who aren't native to it, to the Arabic language, because that's what it was revealed in. And we understand that every translation falls short, and you know, it's words, 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 and it's language, language, language. And we understand, even as non-native Arabic speakers, that there's something about the level of this Arabic that was revealed that in and of itself is considered and often described as a literary miracle, right? So there's
Oh,
something, especially
yes.
now in this printed era, where this is literally a book that's bound that we sit down and we turn the pages of and we read. And yet, we also understand that before this was ever a book, this was very much an oral tradition. And what strikes me about the story that you've told quite beautifully, if I must say, is that it mirrors these anecdotes you hear about people hearing the revealed verses as they came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and like converting in the street because they knew immediately that this was not written by a human being. Like this is
Oh,
something
gosh.
else, you know? And so I guess what I'm trying to highlight is that on one hand, we have something that's textual and it's language based, but then on the other hand, there's this experience that is visceral and physical, and we hear it and we feel it and it permeates us and it transforms us and it affects us, and we have these experiences that don't seem to be confined to the realm of language. And then when we try to articulate it, we can't put it into words either, you know? So it's like this fascinating contradiction or this interesting kind of dichotomy to me of words and language versus something that's completely beyond language altogether, right?
I I can kind of compare it to like, you know, one of your previous videos where you had mentioned, you know, ayahuasca and everything. It's a very, very similar comparison to like when someone asks you, what's an ayahuasca trip like? Oh man, dude, I can't describe that to anyone. Like, you just have to do it if that's really what your heart and your interest is. You just have to experience that for yourself. You know, I could try, but there's no way you're gonna ever describe that psychedelic experience or pretty much any real heavy psychedelic experience. And honestly, most times I visit a good mosque and hear a good khutbah or, you know, have a really good prayer session. I feel like that's a huge psychedelic experience. And, you know, don't even need any substance on that. It's, you know, straight Allah right there. And, but it's so hard to describe in human tongue, like with like what you're experiencing and what you're feeling and what you're learning all simultaneously. And yeah, it's I know a few people who can describe it really well. You know, Mr. Terrence McKenna and all them. They got a really good idea with it. But yeah, man, it's tough to kind of put into words what this spirituality and what this connection to, the higher, the most high is. And it's unique, I think we alluded to this when we first talked. It's unique to all of us, even born Muslims need to find their calling and their path to Allah, and so it's it's very unique, which makes it a very lonely experience at the beginning, especially for a revert that's, like not necessarily your standard order Muslim, it's and then that's kind of an ignorant statement too, because as you grow in your deen, as you grow in Islam, you realize that we're everywhere and we're all like just as weird and just as fun and just as goofy as anyone else, but like we come from all different flavors. And this weekend I'm here in Honolulu, Hawaii, just went to Manoa Mosque, and that is a perfect example of diversity there. There is just every type of person there, any type of culture, and it's insane how many Muslims I'm meeting here in Oahu, not inside the masjid, just by random, I shouldn't say random, but just by, interaction. And it's just it's amazing. It's kind of goes into the concept of like when something's really important to you, when you're really passionate and devoted to something, you kind of notice that everywhere. And then when you're passionate and devoted and worship and in awe of Allah, you're gonna see Allah everywhere, everywhere. And that's the beauty of it, is the submission to just this beautiful existence. And the good, the bad, the ugly. We're all here for it. So
Alhamdulillah. Beautiful,
alhamdulillah.
beautiful words. So you become Muslim. At some point, you make this choice. You give Shahada. You're in. One
Mhm.
of us. One of us. So what's the first of all, how long ago was that? How long has it been?
This was about 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago. Amazing.
Yeah.
So what's, we tend to talk a lot and maybe ask this question and find answers to it of what causes someone or what leads someone to become Muslim. What's that process like? And I'm trying to put more emphasis in my thinking about it in my own life and in people I meet on what the journey since then has been like. So I'm curious
Mhm.
to ask you, like, ever since, you turned this corner, and I'm sure there's not just this kind of event that happens. We don't just become Muslim. I like to think of it as a process before and after. But nevertheless, if we can take that moment as a milestone, what's it been like since then for you?
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I'd love to answer that. I'm going to back up just a tick and just kind of lead into the Shahada itself and then
please.
go from there. Yeah, so it was my first, well, it was I would say zero, my neutral Ramadan. It was my trial Ramadan because I obviously hadn't taken Shahada yet, but I wanted to experience Ramadan with the partner at the time. The midway through Ramadan, I mean, we just decided not to be together anymore. So we walked our separate ways. No harm, no foul. Just, things didn't work out. But, in that time, I was like really hungry and really moody. And it's like, well, this is kind of done, right? We don't really need to pursue this concept anymore, or all this education and like understanding of the culture and everything anymore, because what's the point, right? And that was obviously the wrong attitude at the time, because me being from Hawaii, Hawaiian culture is really keen on kuleana, moral responsibility, right? And you don't quit something you started. You start something, you see it through, right? So and that's just something that also my parents have taught me, and just good people in life have taught me. You don't just stop something because it gets tough or because something changes that is really uncomfortable or something. In fact, that is probably your indicator to push through even harder. So yeah, I fulfilled it and I finished it, and my God, that lit me up. Ramadan, just like nothing could phase you after Ramadan. Like nothing could phase you. Like people be like, "Oh, I'm tired, I'm hungry, bro." You don't know what tired and hungry is, player. Like stuff like that, and it's just like it actually makes life a lot easier after you experience that, and you have the tolerance of that and the discipline of being able to suppress desire and senses. It's a superpower, man. It's a very much a superpower, I would say. But yeah, so we finished Ramadan out. I'm now convinced at this point that I want to be a part of this Islamic tradition. And so I walked down to the mosque, take Shahada, basically walked into the mosque, a non-Muslim came out a Muslim. And it was the most beautiful awakening ever. Now to allude to your question that you're asking, how has it been since? It has been beautiful. It has been lonely. It has been a lot of, and it's, I have to take responsibility and say it's more me than the tradition itself. The tradition is just there. It's not making anyone anxious or annoyed or frustrated. That's all what we're doing to ourselves, right? And so yeah, it's been a journey is the best answer. But it's been difficult because we have an understanding of a religion that we don't have an understanding of yet. And then you start to develop like these weird vendettas with yourself in the sense of like almost sometimes looking and comparing like the traditions of like one sect to another sect to like trying to abandon who you truly are really down to the core of yourself so that you could try to be this new Rohan versus Ryan, basically. Like Ryan is trying to stay alive, but Rohan is trying to become that good Muslim and stick on the deen and everything. And I think it was hard because when you're so new to it and you're still learning and your Arabic isn't good and like you're trying your best, but then you got your regular life to deal with and you got your family and your friends and stuff. It's a lot. Like so you're constantly like pressed for not so much time, but just for energy, like, oh man, I got my social life and my work life and my family life. And then now I have to allocate 4 or 5 hours a week to Quranic studying or like just to better my deen so that I'm not like, not only embarrassing myself, but embarrassing my God. You know what I mean? And so it's a lot of pressure. You put a lot of pressure on yourself to live up to this standard. And I guess I misconstrued it as so rigid and so stiff and black and white that you got this musician, producer, psychonaut type of guy who found a beautiful way and the way, in my opinion, but the rules kind of make it difficult for him to be himself. So he's very very confused on how to do that, but you talk to other brothers and they give you like a 50-50 thing, like they give you some really good advice that helped you through a small like issue that you had with yourself, but then they also in that same statement say something that creates a whole new like issue for you, and then you're like, okay. So it comes down to the philosophy of comparison is a thief of joy. And so yes, it's nice to adopt wisdom and teachings from our scholars and people who have been in the tradition for longer than we have. But it's also very keen, in my opinion, to take everything with a grain of salt and to kind of let what speaks to you and resonates with you and lights you up about like either the Quran or like a khutbah or something that's being told to you by a fellow Muslim or a scholar, if that like resonates in your gut, in your heart, and you feel it, I feel like that is the true word of Allah. And then if there's something that kind of like you're like, huh? I don't know about that, man. I don't really agree with that. Not to say that you're not right. Maybe I'm wrong. Most time I'm wrong. But it's like sometimes there's just a little something I read or something that was said that I'm like, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just need a little bit more education on that. And so, you want them to elaborate a little bit on that. And that's the beauty too in Islam. It's like, the openness of questioning and like the openness of like dialogue about it. Definitely and I'm not saying it's this everywhere in churches and whatnot, but yeah, when I was going to Sunday school as a kid, I got kicked out of Sunday school for asking too many questions, which was okay. Wow, I thought this was a school, like don't we ask questions in school? But like, yeah, no, but that could have just been the bad church. I'm not saying all churches are bad. I think, anything that gets you in some sort of relationship with God, I don't think necessarily is fully bad or anything. I think if you can find a way to God, then find your language and get flow into it. But for me, it was Islam. That's what resonated with me. And it may not work for you, but it works for me for the time being, and I love it. So that's what it is. So it's been rough. It's been rough and easeful at the same time, but with every hardship comes ease. So
Mm.
yeah.
Oh man, brother, I totally resonate so much with a lot of what you're saying, and you're really just taking me back to this time when I felt like a sponge and I was just soaking it. I mean, I still do, but when I was just freshly Muslim, I was like this very sensitive sponge who was soaking everything up, but then everything was such a big deal. And if someone would correct me on something, I would think, oh wow, like, ugh, I'm shaken up now. And I was just kind of always getting freaked out about stuff. And you have people telling you things all the time. Sometimes they contradict with one another and you don't really know how to make sense of it. I know, I believe it's Imam Zaid Shaker has this line that's quoted a lot, and he says, "Come to Islam as it is. Sorry,
Mm,
come as you are to Islam as it is," which is to say that you're not trying to change the religion or say, nah, I'm going to do it my way. I don't accept that. I accept this. I'm picking from the buffet as I like.
mm,
But you show up fully as yourself. You allow yourself to be yourself. You are welcome as yourself. And then, at least in my case, a lot of what it boiled down to for me was, you know what? Maybe I'm just not ready for that right now. Maybe you're telling
mm,
me something that is 100% true, and I'm just at a stage of my development where I'm not really able to take that on, even psychologically, let alone implement some kind of change in my day-to-day life. And that was a real saving
mm.
grace for me of just walking that line. It was like, you know what? I'm not trying to change the religion, and I'm not trying to say I know better than you. I just got here. But maybe, maybe maybe I'm just
Yeah,
it's just a little too soon on that one for me. But nevertheless,
absolutely.
it can be a rocky
Absolutely.
road that bit. And I think that's why these conversations are so valuable, right? Because I know it's got to be a more common experience than people let on. And I think,
Yes.
just to tack on one
Yeah.
more thing to that, I think that's maybe a bit of the problem of putting so much emphasis on the lead up to the Shahada moment and the Shahada moment. And you see all this stuff on social media where it's like, and then I just became Muslim and the stars aligned and I realized La ilaha illallah. And then ever since then, my life has just been this like fantasy fairy tale where I was just like surrendered to the truth. But it's not really very real in many cases, or at least that happens.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next part where you get to some crisis and then you're in the dark night of the soul thing after the Shahada.
Oh,
In my experience, it's kind of been like one crisis to another rush of iman and happiness back to a different type of crisis. It's like you kind of,
so basically, the surah of with every hardship comes ease. Then,
yeah, fully. So true.
yeah,
True. But I
it's
mean,
a pendulum, in a sense, is my metaphor anyway for that line. It's like, when the pendulum swings your way, it's basic, like, from the Kabbalion, basically, the concept of the pendulum. It's gonna swing in your favor, and then it's gonna swing away from you, not in your favor. And so it's like the concept that Islam had kind of brought to me. And, yes, Islam is my foundation, but I have a background in so many other spiritualisms that, like, I kind of just like make the connection to them. And I'm like, wow, okay, cool. That correlates with this from the Kabbalion, or this, from the Bhagavad Gita, from this, it's like, and I'm not necessarily saying, it's all one big thing, but I think they're all kind of saying the same concept is like, when the times are good, you must appreciate that goodness and understand that it's all temporary. And when it's not so good, you also must appreciate like that grief, find that gratitude in the grief, because that's just saying like it's really hard right now. Yeah, it's really, like you said, you're in the dark night of the soul, you're planted, buried deep within the earth, but then you'll sprout and become this beautiful, tree or flower or anything. But what I'm saying is like, when we are in those times of grief, and yes, I know, easier said than done, because it's difficult when we're in those times. But we must like learn to like be grateful for that grief, because grief is the ultimate price for love. Like anything you love is gonna give you and get you grief. So it's like grief is the ultimate price for love. So when it is abundant in our lives, I think that that just is showing us our strength. It's a compliment to our strength. You know, the soul will not have more than it can burden, right? So, and when it does, we call that death. You know what I mean? Like it's just like soul can't contain that, so you're done. But it's just like, yeah, that grief, man. It's like a free strength and conditioning course, and it's also a testament and a compliment to your strength. It's like saying like, you're so strong and amazing that I've sent you this because I just wanted to see you do your thing, man. You're so good at doing your thing, getting through these hardships and stuff. And that gratitude we can find in the grief will really change how like we approach these hardships. And Islam has helped me with that so much, where it's like, yeah, you're going through hell right now, but like there is a rhyme and reason and everything for this. And you won't understand it necessarily now, necessarily in 10 years, but you will one day. And this is probably best that you don't understand this right now, and just push forward. And then you realize you wake up the next day and you're like, man, I was such a hissy fit yesterday. Today's beautiful, and like, and then that's what it is. And and Islam has a beautiful metaphors and beautiful ways of like showing us these things, where it's like I said, it reads you. And some of my favorite days are when I'm going through a crappy day and I'm like lost and I'm a little shaking lamb and I'm like, oh, where's my Quran? And I just don't even look. I'm like, show me the way. And I just open it and it just lands on a page. And, sometimes it's really relevant and sometimes I have to really read and look for it. And then it'll pop out at me like that one line or whatever that's just so relevant that it's like, okay, thank you. I needed that today. Or I needed to read that today. And like I said, it's timeless. It's always relevant. It's always relevant. That's it.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I mean it's hard not to notice the more of these conversations that I have with people that I'm not alone in that there was a certain amount of pain and hardship that if that didn't happen and if I didn't go through a certain dark period in my life, would I be Muslim today? I don't know, maybe not. If I just sort
Mhm.
of became like a millionaire early on and got everything I ever wanted all the time, would I ever
Mhm.
got down on my knees to pray? Like it's hard to, I'll never know, obviously, but I mean,
Right.
there does seem to be something about this hardship that brings us closer to Allah in a way. So, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I was actually at the Maui Masjid before I came out here, and I was going through a rough path. Talk for another time. And I had caught up my brother. It's funny. I called up all my non-Muslim friends who had said, "Whenever you need me, I'll have your back." And they either didn't answer or were too busy. And no harm, no foul. I'm not like, saying what crappy friends. No, like, we're busy, man. Like things are so, I'm not expecting everyone to drop anything and be there for me. But the only friend who answered and was there for me was my Muslim brother. And I said, "Where are you?" He's like, "I'm at the mosque right now." I was like, "Yo, could I come down? I need to pray, man." And I bawled my eyes out, man. I was bawling my eyes out on that mat. And afterwards, he said, that's when Allah loves us the most. Like Allah loves it when we are praying at our most broken times, just filling that mat up with tears and snot and everything, and just screaming why and everything. And that was like such a rejuvenation for me, though, to hear those words. Like, hey, like you knew what you looked like and I knew what you looked like and you knew how you felt, but like you have no idea. Like that is like when Allah loves you the most and like wants you to pray the most. That's it. Like when you're at the most battered and broken point and you're still worshiping Allah and you're still there and still like holding down on the five pillars, that salah, that prayer, and that dua, that time is the most profound prayers, I would say. Like, they say like the biggest lessons aren't learned at the top of the mountains, right? It's at rock bottom where you learn the deepest and the most heartfelt lessons of your life. And yeah, so I just want to throw that tidbit out there that, like, yeah, you're talking about, like, you're gonna get tough and we're gonna go through those darknesses, whether it was necessary or not. I would say that's not up to us to decide whether it's necessary or not. It's how we react to those things is gonna paint our destiny. And Allah has given us a beautiful decision-based destiny, which, if you're anything like me, you're gonna screw that up a lot. But but that's the whole journey of it. Like, if Islam was like easy where you took Shahada and you became perfect, like what would be the concept of it? It would be so fickle and so lame and so like it wouldn't be anything because there wouldn't be that journey to attaining that deen, to attaining that imamship, and like that is my ultimate like motivation in life is to be like the days where you nail all five prayers, where you live that deen the way you wanted. Those are my favorite days, and they're rare. I mean, I might make five prayers a day, but I screw up a lot, and that's the thing is, what are you gonna do? You're gonna screw up and then batter yourself some more, or are you just gonna be like, tomorrow's another day. I'll throw in an extra salah or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, you make up, you repent. That's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing about our religion is no matter what, you're forgiven. But, it's not like, oh, you're forgiven and you just keep doing it, Like, that's not the way to be forgiven. You must repent and like promise not to do it again and actually make an effort not to do the discrepancies or the errors in your ways. And just, I guess, like the forgive the, I don't know, the forgiveness and like the just like the tolerance of like me being so, I guess I wouldn't want to say evil, but just like so like subpar as a human being, and like the serenity and like the welcomeness of that, like you said, and you alluded to it, you come as you are, and it's beautiful. And you think that people that look like us and of our complexion would be kind of like really, alienated in a mosque, but like, no, I walked in and I was welcomed with open arms, and it was just a beautiful concept. So, tattoos and all, everything.
Subhanallah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful words, man. So you mentioned earlier you alluded to a different name, Rohan. Like, have you taken a Muslim name?
I have not like really fully changed anything or adopted it full time, but I got into the concept of, I'm learning Arabic for, Quranic Arabic to learn the Quran. I want to read the Quran in its natural tongue. Obviously, we talked about it earlier, like Hawaii, like Olelo Hawaiian, which is Hawaii's language, the original Kanaka Maoli, it was an oral-based language as well. So, it's kind of still going to be a little bit like a weird thing, because it's like, how do you translate an oral language into something, you get what I'm saying? And so
Hmm.
like even Arabic is still gonna get you to like 99% of what it was, but unless we can get in a time machine and get back there when it was being like actually like spit and recited, then I think like we all have to rely on the Arabic translation. And so in doing so, it's a lifelong journey of learning Arabic so that I can learn and actually read the Quran the way I wanted to. But that being said, yeah, I wanted to adopt an Arabic name or at least like an Islamic name. And so I knew what my parents had named me, my full name, and I'll spare that because of the internet and whatnot. But my full name means the first golden king of our clan, of our McGinnis clan. And then my Arabic name is Rohan Kashif McGinnis, which is kind of the same concept. What I did is I tried to emulate it almost exactly like my name. So it's like RK McGinnis in English, RK McGinnis in Arabic. And Rohan obviously is, Rohan Kashif McGinnis means just the golden pioneer of the McGinnis plan. Because I didn't want to adopt the kingship or the imperialism anymore. Like, sure, Ryan means little king, but I'm not a king. Like, I don't want to be a king. I don't want to be, I want to provide for people, but I don't want to be a ruler. I don't want to rule anyone. That's Allah is king. Like, I'm not, there's no king involved here. So I changed the whole kingship to pioneer. I want to show people maybe possibly the way. So it's like the golden pioneer of the McGinnis clan, or the pioneer into the golden age, is what it really means. So yeah, I'm the first Muslim in my family, so I am kind of the pioneer here. So yeah, that's
Blazing the trail.
yeah. Yeah, it's very fun times, because yeah, my parents are super accepting of it. At first they were like, "What?" Like everyone, I'm sure you had the same concept with your circle, like friends, family. It was like, "What? Did I just hear? What?" And I can't explain it, and I know I won't, unless the ears of understanding are there and want to know why. But like, I'm not gonna go ahead and explain myself. I'm just like, yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't even go out of my way to say it unless, like, I think it was worthy of saying. And I think that's kind of like a little bit of a dawah right there, just to even just say like, no, I'm Muslim. Yeah. It's like, or hey, you want some bacon? No, I'm okay. You don't eat bacon? No, I'm Muslim. Just a simple thing like that. I don't got to be on a apple box outside preaching, like I could just say, yeah, I'm a Muslim. Thank you. And then then something connects in their head, like, oh, I didn't know that Muslims didn't eat pork. Oh, I didn't know that Muslims didn't drink. Oh, stuff like that. What else don't they do? And they start to realize, well, I think I might like this spirituality, or I think I might resonate with this, because that's kind of what it was like at the time. Beyond the girl, beyond the adhan and the music, is I was already kind of changing my lifestyle up at that time. I was waking up early, I was walking every day, I was avoiding substance, avoiding alcohol. Of course, there's certain things that you're prescribed, and for medical things and whatnot, that would help here and there, and I would use that every once in a while. But for the most part, I was like, no, I want to live this clean, this life, this very compassionate life, this very um beyond yourself type of life, and I was already kind of running that trail when I started to develop my knowledge and understanding of Islam. And I was like, wow, it kind of walks along the path that I'm already trying to get to anyway. And then the bigger aha moment was like, wait, wait. So like you start to learn more about it, right? And then you start to realize that, like, as a kid, I used to like not like to do that anyway, because I don't know, I couldn't understand it as a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, why I wanted to pray to God and not Jesus. And like, or like why I questioned this and why I behaved this way, and then it all kind of like led to the point where, like, dude, you always were Muslim. You just didn't follow the rules. Like, you know what I mean? And it was like, wow, you didn't know the rules to follow, or you didn't know the pillars yet, but you basically kind of adhered to it, and it's a beautiful thing. I was like, okay, cool. And it kind of like it gave me peace, because a lot of questioning, and I was like always like this weird alienated black sheep type of like enigma in the community. And like this allowed me to kind of be myself and like love myself, and just love others. So I don't know, just so intensely, and so just endlessly. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think it's only happened once, but I think that was the biggest compliment I felt like I'd ever been given, because there's been so many moments when I've told people I was Muslim in one way or another, and there was a certain amount of shock or surprise. They're like, "What? Like, what? Like you?" But then one person told me when she found out, she was like, "Oh yeah, you became Muslim? Okay, yeah, no, I could see that. That checks out. Like that seems like
Oh
something that's
man,
like."
that I could see how that might have felt great though,
Yeah,
right?
like I think it only happened the one time, but I was just like, yo, that's like the best thing I've ever heard. It's just like if you saw that coming, then
That's
you
awesome,
you
man.
saw me at a deep level that I would like to be seen more often. That's dope. And that I wouldn't necessarily have seen myself. So keep an eye on the clock. You've been so generous with your time, but I was hoping we could switch gears a little bit and talk about your work. I'm curious. how Islam might have permeated other aspects of your life, which you've already alluded to a little bit. But what do you do for work, and has the dean kind of affected that at all? Maybe you could speak to that a bit.
Oh, well, so I'm an analyst case manager for a law firm that's managing the local law firm's clients for the Maui wildfires. Last year, we had a huge disaster of a fire that basically took out an entire town, destroyed part of another, and displaced thousands and thousands of people. And it's been a very difficult road. And my home, Maui, is definitely seen dark times through this, and it's slowly progressing, but it's difficult for a lot. There's a lot of mental tr problems. There's a lot of emotional trauma. So yeah, well, part of my job is to facilitate that, and work with the clients, work with the victims. So most definitely, Islam has helped with that. Islam has allowed me patience and understanding with them, and also part of Islam that really I love about it is like in the Quran it says like although they're not like Muslims, to respect all like ways of life, walks of life, religions. Like doesn't necessarily you don't have to agree with it, but you must show some respect to people. If they're a human being, show some respect, right? And like that's what it was. It was like the people of God, man, like true people of God, like they got different languages, they got different ways to God, but God's there no matter what. And so, yeah, I would always be like, talking to people, and they might have a cross on their neck, but they're still, talking about the same God. And so, like, we resonate on that. We bring it back to God. Like, I know it's not supposed to be like in the workplace, but like, it's like this is a client-based like interaction. So you're going to speak the language of your client. And if the language is God, then you're speaking God, Not no pun intended, but sue me, And the concept for me is like it allowed me to do what my gift was, and that I guess is the gift of gab and the gift of conversation, but it also allowed me to serve my community in ways that I couldn't once we didn't have any search and rescue and hub offers. Like we would run the hubs, we would help people, and we would help distribute a bunch of goods and everything. And once that kind of fizzled out, how do you go back to like a normal job, like and just not help your people? And how do I go and wait tables and talk about the fire all day long, So it allowed me to I was blessed with this opportunity to do this work. It's a lot, but yeah. What's really beautiful is like they allocated, allowed me to go to Juma on Fridays. They allow me to pray in my office. It's very accepted there, but I'm actually kind of like their most people's first Muslim like friend actually, and it's I feel bad for them because like they should probably get a better Muslim friend, but but people ask me all the time, like they see. Well, I'm sure you've kind of experienced this, and I could be wrong, but like as your dean got better, right? I'm sure you've had friends show at least a little interest in Islam because of seeing your progress. You kind of like lead an example for people, and you're like, wow, that's a night and day difference, dude. Right? Like he like 2 years ago versus where I am now, like it would be two different people, right? But
Mm.
the people who have been in your circle that whole time, they see these positive reinforcements and these changes, and they're like, what's going on here? What's your secret? Oh, it's secret Islam. You know what I mean? That's my secret, and it's no secret. Like it's right there if you're just willing to, be open-minded to it. And I've had more friends this past year, like ask for a Quran, ask just like questions, and I'll give them the best and the extent of my knowledge, but I'm like, dang, I'm like the wrong person to be asking. Like I'm still getting my feet wet with it. Like I'm still like learning, like I'm so infantile with my knowledge that I'm happy to show them the door though, because I'll show them a good scholar or someone that resonates with me. In some people's case, I know I'm not trying to like flatter you or anything, but like I'd send them to your channels because I'd have friends in the sense of how we met, where I was very conflicted one day. I was in a lot of emotional stress from work, and I have my ways of facilitating that from my past that I know really, really work. But with my current dean and my current ambition to want to stick that route, I resisted, and it led me to the point where I was at snapping point. Like I was gonna have a mental breakdown. And so I had to just ask for forgiveness and endure the guilt of medicating myself, right? And that was really hard because it was working for my stress, but giving me stress because I felt guilty about doing that, about using the therapies I know, which are like natural homeopathic, like psychedelic remedies. And it led me to your channel, man. Like I was like, dude, I have so many questions. There must be someone out there. There must be another psychonaut, or at least former psychonaut, who's like integrated in Islam, who has gone through this trial of mental like comprehension of how can I balance both, and I watched your ayahuasca video and it really set me free, brother. It really set me free. It set me free from a lot of the guilt out there and a lot of the firmness and putting myself into a box and conforming into it. And
Mm,
it's beautiful the way you said it. It's just like I'm not trying to change the box. I'm just probably not ready for the box yet. I'm still learning my contortionism. And so at the time, I felt okay with healing myself in the ways that I knew. And that night, I got closer to Allah more in my entire life than I did from releasing that guilt and releasing the concept of what a Muslim should be and just being the Muslim that I was.
mm,
So I want to thank you for that. I literally like you cleared so much of mental anguish on myself that I would put on my own heart through just exposure and awareness and just being you and saying that like we don't always have to have an understanding or a firm concept of what this is. I think it's ever evolving and going to change every day. So don't beat ourselves up too much about it and listen to what God says. If you feel it in your gut and it's good and it doesn't feel terrible and you've done at least a little bit of mental processing on it, not just like "Ah, okay and being spontaneous with it, but like actually thought about it and you're like, I don't think this is gonna ruin my relationship with Allah. I don't think this is gonna ruin my deen. I don't think I'm gonna do this and be completely turned off from this. I think this is actually gonna facilitate me getting better and like, actually get me closer to God or something. And it did. It did. And alhamdulillah, I thank you for that, my brother. So thank you. Thank you for your service, man. Like,
mm,
don't ever think that this is futile, man. There's bound to be more of us out there who are like,
mm,
just not trying to define something because to define something really does close its corners to it. And I think Islam is much more than we can define in human tongue.
mm, mm. Yeah, bro, thank you for sharing that with me. That's there's so much there I really want to unpack. I don't even know where to start. I think it's interesting too because when I became Muslim, I understood conceptually that Rome wasn't built in a day, and I'm not going to flip some switch and just be some perfect Muslim that I want to be overnight, and that's not how this goes. And there's hadith about it, like no one takes on too much of the religion except that they overwhelm themselves. This is in the scripture, but no one really gives you a roadmap for how that path actually looks or what kind of timeline is acceptable or how to do it, and instead, if anything, you kind of get this vibe of like you got to avoid haram, brother. You're a Muslim now, kind of. And even if people are nice about saying it, it's sort of the messaging that I kind of got anyway. I was in this one kind of intensive, sort of knowledge intensive, and in the open Q&A session, one of the students asked this question that really left an impression on me. She said, Siddhi, like I'm saying astaghfirullah like all day, every day. I never really feel forgiven, and I always feel like I need forgiveness, and I'm always seeking it, and I just feel kind of like terrible about myself. I think this person had been Muslim for a long time too. This was not even like a new revert situation. And the teacher's response was, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent as a mercy to all the worlds. And in our desire as Muslims to emulate that, we want to be a mercy to all the worlds. That's what we're trying to do in embodying the Sunnah. And in order to do that, it means not only are we a mercy to our communities and to our family and our friends and the Muslims and the non-Muslims around us, but we want to be a mercy to ourselves as well. And
Deep.
it's not a simple guidebook even after that, because when you're in a situation like you describe, well, what's the merciful move? Maybe the merciful move is to um manage your pain in the way that you understand how.
Mm,
Maybe it's
thank you.
not. I don't really know. Like I don't have the answer to that, but I will say that this is something that is clearly very common too. And what it also brings to mind for me is that you have this strong encouragement not to like broadcast your sin, right? It's just like, oh, if I decided I was going to go to a bar and get wasted that night, okay, you sinned, brother. You repent. Allah accepts your sincere repentance. Okay, but you don't talk about it. You never talk about it. It's like, okay, cool. So you don't spread the sin, and I understand that. But then what happens when we all just kind of go through these experiences and then we feel isolated because we don't really talk to anybody and we don't, maybe it's
Mm,
something you talk to someone you trust and you don't put it on YouTube, and that's maybe there's a solution to that. I don't know, but I will say that it's very clear to me that a lot of people are feeling isolated with experiences that they have. And so, it's very much my hope that people will watch, this interview or other interviews or hear more of these stories and just feel less isolated about that and feel less lonely. And it strikes me on a logical level that statistically there are other people out there that are having experiences that you feel like you're the only one. And that's sort of where the
oh
loneliness
yeah.
come in, you
All
know.
right.
And
They're out there.
yeah, and it's an interesting time in history too, because you can be the only one in your town or in your area or even just in your social circle who's the Muslim, and then kind of like you alluded to, like you find yourselves in these like awkward ambassador positions. It's like I just became Muslim and now I'm supposed to represent it. Like don't quote me on this.
Yeah,
Take what I say with
yeah.
a grain of salt, dude. I'm the last person who should be telling you about the deed, and yet you're
No,
put in
it's a
that
real thing,
situation
dude.
because you're the only Muslim that they know, right? So
Right.
so it's a funny thing where we are in a way very isolated because Islam is spreading in this way where someone can be exposed to it on the internet and then be the only person in their town to give shahada. And yet the internet is also this place that allows us to have this conversation right now. I'm in Istanbul. It's 11:15 at night. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You're
I'm in Hawaii in Honolulu. It's 10:15 in the morning.
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, it's like these new connections can happen, and inshallah someone's going to watch this video and hopefully derive some comfort from it. And I think there's a real dawah in all of this stuff too, because you're breaking down a certain stereotype of what a Muslim looks like and what a Muslim goes through and the types of thoughts that Muslims might have and the types of backgrounds that they might come from and the types of
Come to Honolulu or come to Oahu if you want to see what a Muslim looks like. It looks like every type of person you've ever seen in your life. Like that's what's crazy about like Hawaii and melting pot places is good. The masjid is a very beautiful experience because it's every it looks like literally a barbecue of everybody. Everybody's together. And like yeah, there's no there's no look of a Muslim, man. Like we're all just human, and it doesn't matter. Like I've met more non-Arabic Muslims here on this trip ever. Like, you know what I mean? And it's beautiful, dude. I'm non-Arabic Muslim. It's just like So it's just
I mean, most
yeah,
Muslims are outside the Middle East, right?
that's
And
what I'm saying, you know,
yeah.
and then and that's a testament to it. And so, yeah, breaking the stereotypes of like that isolation and kind of being shelled into like hush hush. Yeah, I mean, there's a time and place for it, you know, and then maybe work on the elegance of how you distribute this conversation or this or how do you converse. Maybe you don't need to like let's put it this way, have the conversation, don't have the confessional. You know, don't go to
Mm.
confessional, go and have the conversation about it, but then you have to take the do the diligence and process it first before you emulate a conversation or project it, because without doing that you might project something offensive, you might stir the pot in the wrong way. And by the way, since this is going to be on the internet, haram police, brah. Chill out, dude. Chill out. Like, seriously, like, it's haram to call haram things out. Chill out, man. Like, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. But guess what? It's a journey. It's a journey. So you're gonna see this guy right now. They're already hating. I see them. They're typing already. Just stop. Wasted energy. Go get a hobby, bro. Get a hobby. Seriously. All right. I just had to say that with the
I
Haram
like the
police.
PSA. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, man. Like we can all get along and maybe you do have something really good to say, but how are you saying it? Is that how
Mm.
you would talk to your mother? How about this? Haram police, if you have advice for new people or for people who might be distracted or in a alternative way, how about you communicate that education in the way that you would talk to someone you loved and someone your mother or something. And I don't know, maybe some people have a bad relationship with their mother. So you know what I mean though, by elegantly conveying the message. Because I saw a quote when I was working at this I was working at a restaurant, and it said correction goes a long way, but encouragement goes further. So like yes, you can have some good advice to give, but just distribute it very elegantly and kindly, or not at all. Not at all. Maybe it's not your place to make that call. You know what I mean? You don't have that authority. So yeah,
Mm.
this Maui Muslim dude was like, Haram, please chill out. And that's a concept I think we can all adopt in Islam too. It's like I think if anyone's having conflict of it, like internal conflict with like, you know, balancing Islam and who you truly are, take a breather, man. Chill out, like you said. It's not built in a day. Rome is not built in a day. Take it one step at a time. You know, you don't have to be perfect coming out of the bat. Like, it's probably gonna take years until you kind of feel that you're getting this like in the way that you want to get it. So be
Mm.
patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, and just remember that, yeah, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. The journey is the destination.
Beautiful. Okay, my brother, you've been so generous with your time. Is there
Yeah,
anything else
man.
you wanna shout out or you wanna mention before we wrap it up?
Yeah, dude, I just want to say all praise to Allah, and then I want to shout out my family, my mother, my father, my two sisters, and also I just want to shout out all my residents there, all my friends and family on Maui, also the Maui residents who have moved away or who have sadly perished and lost their lives. My hearts and my love and my prayers go out to you, and I'm working every day to try to help facilitate getting us back on our feet in the ways that I can possible. So, yeah, I pray every day that Allah gives us more strength to do that, and with the hopes that all beings be free of suffering, may all beings be happy.
I mean, and may I just say before I let you go, it's so beautiful to see the nur in your eyes and on your face, and you come with this positive energy that if you hadn't told me, I would have no idea about the work that you do and the kind of heaviness that you're exposed to on a day to day. And it's just that it's incredibly touching, you know what I mean? So I really hope people make it this far into the interview, and I just feel like there's a positive
Yeah,
vibration
this
about.
is some Hawaiian words for you. It's like kuleana is a moral responsibility, pono, righteousness, doing what is right, and aloha. It's not just hello and goodbye. Aloha means love. And the funny thing is, aloha and Allah are the same amount of letters, and they sound and N, or they start in N in the same sound. Uh, uh, Allah, aloha. So there's a little bit of a connection there too.
Subhanallah. All right, beautiful. Thank you so much again, brother, for sharing your time and your energy. All the best, all the best. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.